you are his friend and you are joining us on the phone, which is wonderful, and we welcome you. And I think those of you from TMKC who are here have heard him speak before. His claim to fame in my mind is that he's very good friends with my son Benji, although his talents and abilities go way beyond that. But to me, the most important thing is relationships ever. That tops anything. And so that connection and that relationship is something I value tremendously. And I feel very fortunate that he and I have been able to keep in touch. I always say, I don't think I've ever said this to Menachem, but I think I've said to Benji, when you're in Israel, it's nice to know there's another young from man that, texts me and keeps in touch, who's not so far away. So, and we had the good fortune to finally meet each other several months ago, and he spent Shabbat with us, which was a really special treat. And what was really kind of fascinating to me beyond the personal was that, beyond the personal, was that while he and Benji are both frum, and they both traveled different paths in becoming where they are religiously, in fact, they're part of different frum communities. So, I think people, if they go, anyone in a black hat does everything the same, but of course that's not true of anyone in a black hat more than anyone without a black hat. But in fact, he is from part of a Hasidic group, and Benji is part of what we would call a Litvish group. So while they have very much in common and it doesn't affect the friendship in any way, and they've studied together, it was fascinating to me to talk to someone from a different community and learn about that community. But tonight he's going to talk about something that we all know about, but we will learn about on a deeper and a different level, which is Tu Bishvat, which is, we usually refer to it as the birthday or the New Year of the trees, because simply saying the 15th of the month of Shvat doesn't sound very glamorous. And it is a time that we celebrate and connect with the trees and nature. When we've been together over the years, we've had really fun Tu Bishvat Seders, which I miss tremendously, and hopefully soon we'll be able to be back together and doing that. So tonight, and just to remind everyone, Tu Bishvat actually begins on Sunday evening through Monday. It coincides this year with Martin Luther King Day, just by pure coincidence. And also, as a little trivia, it corresponds with Betty White's, what would have been her 100th birthday. So and she actually was very into animal rights and animal advocacy, which isn't exactly the same as trees, but all part of God's creation and all part of nature in various ways. So in my mind, all these things coinciding is kind of just a fun coincidence, or one might say b'sher. So anyway, we are not here to hear me. I am going to turn on the recording, and I think we lost a couple people, but I'm assuming they will come back and we will let them back in. I hope I didn't scare them off by my talking. And here's Renee's right back. And turn it over to Menachem.
Okay,
and now I'm going to be recording.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
Okay, thank you so much, first of all, Rabin, for those warm words of introduction. It's actually very funny, as you were saying, I did not think about it as Martin Luther King Day, although there is obviously a lot to talk about on Martin Luther King Day and its connection to Tu B'Shvat, as we could discuss, obviously. But really, I want to focus on a little bit of a different point this year. The point I wanted to focus on is more, once again, as you mentioned, as that's the Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, the birthday of the trees. That this is the time of year that we celebrate the trees, nature, the environment, and all these types of things. Now, thinking about it, obviously from a religious point of view, what exactly is the source? Where do we find such an idea, this idea? Where does it come from? Where do we find such things as we have a New Year, a birthday that we celebrate, a day we're celebrating the trees, the environment, the grass, the stuff like that? So what really is the deeper meaning involved in this? Now, as well, as we're on the topic over here of discussing trees and the environment and those things, this year has another very unique aspect to it, and that is this year's what's called Shemitah. Not sure if, Rabbi, if you mentioned Shemitah at all.
I don't think I have this year, actually.
So Shemitah, yeah.
Explain it. It's very important.
Shemitah is that the Torah actually tells us that for 6 years you're going to work the fields. For 6 years You're going to go, you're going to harvest, you're going to plant. But the seventh year is a year of rest. The same sort of system as you have by Shabbat, Shabbos, right? You have 6 days you work. The seventh day is a day of rest. So we have the Shemitah. 6 years we work the fields. The seventh year is a year of rest where we go back to study. We go back to studying the Torah, the Talmud, everything. And it's a year that we think. We think about where's this food coming from? Why is that the other 6 years we have food? And it reminds us to think about God, think about Hashem, think about what He gave us. It's a year of reminder. And though it's not really enough to just have the reminder, it's not enough that we're just thinking about it. There's another step we have to do, the next step. And what's that next step? The next step is you have to think God. You have to think Hashem. That's the next step. So really, Shemitah is more than just the year of rest. It's the year of gratitude. And that's really what I want to focus on the next few minutes, is this idea of gratitude, of thankfulness, of thanksgiving. What does it mean to have gratitude? What's the importance of gratitude? And how does this connect back really to Bishvat, the holiday that we're coming to celebrate here? Although Shemitah is also very nice. But really, Bishvat is what we're really here to talk about today, so let's try to connect that. There is a fascinating Pele Yoetz. Pele Yoetz is a book from the mid-1800s written. It's a Musar, an ethics book. It's a very sharp book, a very scary book to read, because a lot of the stuff written inside of it are very sharp, to the point, direct. And it makes a person shiver, and it really brings in self-thoughts in a person. A person has to think about, well, maybe I shouldn't do the sins, It adds a bad thing to sin. And this book is discussing the idea of a person who denies them someone does good to them. What's called a kafle tov. A person who turns away from the good and doesn't acknowledge and doesn't thank the person for the good. And over there, it starts off by discussing this person who denies the good, and it's only focused on the bad. But then it turns, and it discusses a whole new idea. It discusses the idea of gratitude. And it brings up something very fascinating, and it really has to do with the Torah portion these past few weeks. Which again, I don't know which parts of the Torah portion he discussed in synagogue the past few weeks. But we had the 10 plagues. And interestingly enough, in the first few of the 10 plagues, one of the fascinating things that happens is we find by the first plague, by the plague of blood and by the plague of frogs, we find God tells Moses, you're not going to be the one to go cause the plague to come. Your brother Aaron has to do it. Now the question on this, why not? Moses is the leader, Aaron's the leader, but Moses was the real leader. Moses is the one we're looking up to. Moses is Moses. Moses is the great leader of the Jewish nation. He's going to be the one to take the Jewish nation out of Egypt. And yet, Moses, you're not going to do it. Aaron's going to do it. Why would that be? Why would we think that we'd have to have that Aaron should do it instead of Moses? And this, we're going to come to the Pele Yoetz, and he explains it like this, that we know from the history of Moses, and we followed Moses' life, we learned some very important lessons. One of the big lessons we learned in Moses' life was the lesson, let's go back first. Let's take a step back to the history of Moses. What was the history of Moses? He's born, and the Egyptians wanted to kill him. No Jewish boys are allowed to be born. So what do? They put him in a little, a makeshift boat, some sort of thing, and they let him loose in the river. And he's sort of floating around the river, and his sister's standing to watch him, obviously. We're all familiar with the story. So Moses got saved by the water. And because he got saved by the water, God said, you have to learn to appreciate. You got saved by the water, so now you don't go and you don't fight against the water. You don't go do something against the water. You don't cause the water to now go and to harm people. You don't turn that water into blood. Why not? Because you have to show your appreciation. You have to show your gratitude to that which the water saved you. And the same thing with the frogs. You can't cause that the frogs come from the water because you know what? The water saved you. So you see that it's such a great thing, this gratitude. It's not enough that you have to show your gratitude to people, to God, to anything like that. No, you show your gratitude to the water. The water saved you. You got to thank the water. You got to make sure of it. In fact, many of us are familiar with the custom to recite a blessing when one passed by a place where a miracle happened to him. Anytime you pass by that place in the future, you have to commemorate it. You have to thank it. Thank God for that name. You go and you make a blessing at that spot where it happened. That's the way it works. Also, something fascinating. Also, this idea of gratitude. But there's more to it. There are so many times we find gratitude. There's so many different stories of people who show their gratitude. And not only did Their gratitude showed appreciation. It went to the next step. Because of their gratitude, it turned to save them. You know, the story happened in 2001. Two women were on vacation in Israel. These women were co-workers. They worked together in the big offices in Manhattan. 2001, they're in Israel. They want to go into the pizza shop, Sabaro Pizza Shop. They come in, about to order pizza. While they're there waiting for the pizza, the waitress tells them, you know, it's very crowded today. There's no seats available, so why are you waiting in the pizza store? Go outside. You'll be able to breathe a little. You know, it'll be a little more relaxed and it'll be more enjoyable. Okay, and then I'll come outside to call you in. So they thanked her profusely for this offer. Very nice of her, very kind of her. So they went. Very nice. They'll go outside across the street. About a minute after they get outside across the street, they hear a big loud noise. Turn around, and there's a bombing. Sabaro Pizza Shop, famous bombing. They're shocked, shell-shocked. Oh, look at this. We just got saved. He says, go think, who's this waitress? They go. They run to the scene. They take a look. They see the waitress is there. For the remainder of their trip to Israel, they see she's alive. So they go to the hospital every single day to go visit her. And they became friends. Before they left back to America, they went to visit her. They said, this is our number. Please, 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 we want to stay in touch with you. You're our new friend. We want to stay in touch with you. We owe you appreciation for our life. We'll do anything to help you. About a month or two later, they get a call from this friend of theirs. Guess what? I'm coming to America next week. I have an operation on this day. Please come and please, I want to meet with you. They said, okay. They both tell their boss. They worked in the same building. They both told their boss, we can't come in that day. We have to go meet this person. We have to go see her. You know, it's our friend. We have to meet with her. Fine. They come to the hospital. A few minutes later, they get the news that their building, 9/11, it was 9/11. Their building that they worked in, the World Trade Center, was destroyed. Look at what the value is of appreciation. By them showing their appreciation and keeping up with this woman, their life got saved. She saved them once, and look at that. Later on, many years later, well, not even many years, a few months later, their life got saved the second time. That's what happens because they show their gratitude. That is the power of showing gratitude. But there are many other stories of gratitude. You know, there's a famous story of Israel Gustman. It was a famous Rosh Yeshiva, dean of a prominent yeshiva in Israel. And every single day, he used to sit outside watering the plants. You know, eventually his students went over to him and he said, you know, the rabbi should be learning, the rabbi should be studying, the rabbi should be speaking, the rabbi should be doing so many things. Yet the rabbi makes time every day to go and water plants. Isn't that a waste, seemingly a waste of the rabbi's time? What do you think you're doing over here? He said, let me tell you a story. Before the war, I was walking with my rabbi, Rabbi Chaim Ozer Grodzinski, who was the leading rabbi in pre-war Europe, one of the leading rabbis in pre-war Europe, in the Litvish communities. But he was held up unanimously by both the Litvish and Hasidic communities. He was considered to be the leading scholar of that generation, in that pre-war era. And we were walking Shabbat afternoon, we were taking a walk together, and we walked to the forest. And as we walked into the forest, you know, we come to the first place, and he points out, this plant's edible. This plant, it tastes good if you put it in soup. This plant tastes good like this. This plant's poisonous, don't eat that one. This one you should roast. This one you should do this. And he's giving a list of different things. Okay. So, you know, why does the rabbi need to tell? Okay, I'm not going to ask questions. Doesn't ask questions. Fine. Let's go. Okay. Very nice. A little bit later, came the war, World War II broke out. Rabbi Sol Gustman relates that he went and he hid in the forest in war-stricken Europe. And as he hid in the forest, he survived off his knowledge of the plants. Every day he used to eat different plants. This one was nutritious. This one wasn't. This one was. This one wasn't. He planted this one, didn't plant this one. This one he put in soup, and he was able to survive the war from that. He said, now that I come out of the war, I cannot thank the plants. I only survived this war because of the plants. And now you expect that I should go and just forget about them? No, I have to show gratitude. Because that's the way of a Jew, to show gratitude. But you know, it's really not only about this. I want to leave this for a minute, and I want to discuss another custom that we find on Tu B'Shvat. And again, this is a very custom that's spoken about many times in the Hasidic circles, in the Hasidic communities. I don't know if it's spoken about in other communities. And that is the custom to pray for an esrog. What? Yeah, to pray for an esrog. We pray that we should have a nice esrog this year. You know, when we shake our date palm and our myrtle branches and all these other things on Sukkot, we also should have a nice esrog. That's what we're doing today? That's what we're praying about? What is this idea? Where does this custom come from? So now the custom to pray for it comes because there's the idea that this is the Rosh Hashanah for trees and for the plants. You know, the first time we find mention of Tu B'Shvat, really, coincidentally enough, is in a Mishnah. We don't find mention of it in the written Torah. We find it in the Mishnah, the oral law. The first Mishnah of Tractate Rosh Hashanah, which discusses Rosh Hashanah, it says there are several Rosh Hashanahs during the year. And there's an argument, what is the first Rosh Hashanah? It's disputed over there. Is the first Rosh Hashanah, what's the Rosh Hashanah for the trees? Is it the Rosh Hashanah, is it the 15th, or is it the first of Shvat? And it's disputed over there. That's the first time we find mention of this idea. But once it's a Rosh Hashanah for trees, we're going to pray also that it should be nice. The same way we pray at Rosh Hashanah, that it should be a nice year for us and the year should be good. So too, we're going to pray that the fruit that we're going to use for our future mitzvah will also be nice. But where does this idea come from? We have to have a nice esrog? Like, who cares? The difference, you know? You know, this one has one spot on it, this one has two spots on it. This love's a little bit more green, this one's a little bit less green, this one's a little dark. Where did this idea come from? So, actually, once again, we could look at this week's Torah portion, Parshas Beshalach. And we discussed the Jewish nation going out of the land of Israel. And one of the things they do when they leave the land of Israel is they cross the sea. And afterwards they sing a song of gratitude. And there's a verse there. When they cross the sea, one of the verses in the song they sing afterwards is that Kilian Veil. That should be very nice. Now, this verse, the Talmud, several places, uses to explain, to mean the idea that when we do mitzvot, when we do the commandments, we have to do it the nicest way possible. Although over there it's being used to praise God for our leaving Egypt. Well, on that note, by the way, leaving Egypt, another idea we could connect it to gratitude. In prayers, many people say multiple times a day. They say this song that they sing in the morning prayers. And after the Shema, multiple times a day, people say different prayers commemorating our leaving of Egypt. Now, why it is that we're having such a focus of this leaving of Egypt? Why do we focus? Why do we care so much? You know, that happened 3,000 years ago. You know, I should still be busy with this now. Couldn't you think of something better? You know, let's commemorate other things. Why are we focusing on this? But the reason that we're focusing on this is because this is really what made us into a nation. What created us and made us into the Jewish nation is our leaving Egypt. That was step one. We're no longer slaves. We're no longer part of Egypt. We are a new nation. We are a unique people, the sons of God. That's who we are, a special people. Okay? So now that that's significant, of course we should commemorate it. Let us thank God for giving us, making us His chosen nation. Let's thank Him for bringing us so close and for caring so much about us. Of course that's something we should do. But back on what we were saying, this verse teaches us the importance of always making sure to do the mitzvot in a nice way. And really even the idea of an esrog. There's a story said over, a beautiful story, once again by the period of the Second World War. At the very beginning of the war, the story happened with the Lubavitcher Rebbe, not the previous one, but the one before him, the Rebbe Riyatz, as he was called. And the big Lippish Rav at that time, the big Lippish rabbi was called the Brisker Rav, the rabbi of the city of Brisk, Rabbi Soloveitchik. And the Brisker community is famous for their extreme scrutiny in keeping the mitzvah. They do everything to the highest level possible. Such detail makes a difference to them. And they will go to extreme levels to make sure that they will never do something wrong. And everything has to be to perfection to the highest level possible. So, the Brisker Rav, by the beginning of the war period, and he wanted to get a nice esrog. So, Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe Riyatz, wanted to do what he could to help him get it. So what did he do? He decided he's going to go and he's going to ship over an esrog for the Brisker Rav. Now, it's war starting, bombings everywhere. So he's got to be crazy, you know, for attempting to take this risk. And now he's going to go and he's going to bring an esrog, but he's going to get an esrog. Now, you can't just go with the esrog. You have to find a way to get it, and safely you have to find a way to get it from one place to another place. So one of his students volunteered that he's going to be the one to be the messenger. So the Rebbe Riyatz, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, sent a message. This is where we're going to be at this time, this night. I'm going to be over here, this in this place. Come find me. You'll pick up the esrog and you'll bring it to the rabbi in brisk. Okay? Very excited. So he comes 9 o'clock to go. He gets to the door, knocks on the door, starts banging on the door. Someone answers up. I'm sorry, the Rebbe Riyad has to move on. It was getting too dangerous from over here. He said, this is this location. What's the next location? You know what? I'll catch him over here. He gets there, and they said he just left 5 minutes ago. You have to go to the next location. And he's going around, finally 11 o'clock, 2 hours later. He finds the Rebbe Riyad. Okay, he gets the esrog. He's excited. He's going to be the one to bring it to the big rabbi in brisk. He takes the esrog. He goes with it, and he travels to brisk and brings it. Throughout the way, there are bombings happening non-stop. He has to go hide every few minutes. Either way, a trip that was not supposed to take so long. He got there at 4 o'clock in the morning. Delivers the esrog to him. He was ready to die to do this. Who would think? What's the significance of doing such a thing for one esrog and a nice one? Now, Lubavitcher Hasidim have a custom to only use certain esrogs, so only from certain locations, because they say it's even nicer. So they're going to such crazy extents to get this nice esrog. They couldn't do anything less. But no, that's what they're trying to show. They're trying to show is the idea and the importance and the value of every little mitzvah. Even a nice esrog. They're going to try to do what they can for their nice esrog. So when we come to Tu B'Shvat, that's obviously something we have to pray about. Let us try praying for a nice esrog. Maybe this year we'll have a nicer one than we've ever had before. Or maybe it'll be something else. But let's bring this back together. We said before, we spoke about when we crossed the land of Egypt, when we crossed over Egypt. Now we're learning this whole thing out about the nice esrog. We're learning from the fact that they crossed over the Yam Suf. They crossed over the big Red Sea. God saved us. He helped us cross over, and we thank God for it. Now this idea of gratitude over here, and I'm saying to thank God, but it's more than just thanking God. The idea of every thank you. I saw a beautiful story. Rabbi Pesach Kron, a well-known orator in the Orthodox world. He's an orator and author, goes around to speak in many places. He said that one time he was in the airport for a flight. And he was running to catch this flight. He's running. He makes the flight, goes on to the airplane. Amazing. To get to the airplane, 2 security personnel come on, board the flight, and they start walking up and down. He sees everyone staring at him, getting nervous. What are they coming after me for? They go to him, they say, excuse me, sir. Yes. How can I help you? Did you lose your phone? Excuse me? Did you lose your phone? He goes, he starts checking his pockets, he's looking. Yeah, you're right. I lost my phone. He goes, but how did he know? Is it because my rabbinic garb? He's dressed in his rabbinic garb. They said no, because throughout every single person there, you're the only one to say thank you. And because you said thank you, we made sure to remember you. The idea of gratitude is a big thing. It's not something that should be taken for gratitude. One thank you can mean you'll never be forgotten. One thank you can mean you could go so far. With that thank you, could accomplish so much of that thank you that your life could be saved, as in the Sbarro pizza shop, one by 9/11. The power of a thank you. Who knew that I could do so much? One small word can make a world of a difference, could change your entire life, and could even save your life. There's many people have the custom when they wake up in the morning, they recite a prayer Modani. Again, I don't know if you're familiar with it, Rabbi. I don't know if it's something you've spoken about before. But
no, you know what? And we actually don't. We're usually not together in the mornings, but when we are, that's not part of the liturgy that we do.
Okay, so I'll bring up the idea. Obviously, I'm not telling anyone that they have to do it. I don't want anyone to feel that I'm enforcing religious practices or anything like that on people. I bring up the idea that there's a custom brought down that many people, when they wake up in the morning, they wash their hands. The first thing they do is they wash their hands, but then they recite this prayer, the Modani prayer. And the Modani prayer, which is really only a few words, maybe a dozen words. And what this prayer is that it's a prayer of thank you. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, God, for helping me wake up in the morning. Thank you that I can get a whole brand new day where I can go and I can accomplish so much more. Thank you for the amazing day I had yesterday. Thank you for the good night's sleep. Thank you for everything. That's this prayer. It's that small thank you, these small thank yous could change the whole world and could change the life. That is the power of a thank you, and that's the power of gratitude. And really, I believe that is what Tu B'Shvat is all about. Tu B'Shvat is a time to come say thank you. Yes, thank our family and friends, but also thank God for the beautiful, amazing, delicious fruit He gives us throughout the year. And thank you for allowing me to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask if anyone, I think it's okay with you, if anyone has any questions or comments or thoughts they would like to share. And that applies not just to those on the video, but if anyone on the phone wants to say something, you just can push *6, which will get you off of, I believe, take off mute. But we'll start with Ellen, who I see her hand is up.
I just want to say thank you for coming and speaking to us and sharing this message of gratitude. So greatly appreciated.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity once again and to come share some words that hopefully we could all use, myself included, to hopefully grow and to continue to grow further from here.
You know, it's interesting because in the non-Orthodox world, and I myself, have studied and I'm very into mindfulness meditation, but a lot of that is about awareness and gratitude. And, I'll talk to people and they'll say, well, it's really important to do that. And I say, I agree, but, that all exists in Judaism. And, I'll often meet Jewish people doing that and not realizing that blessings have that exact same purpose. Like that you talked about a bit of like, I think the way I understand blessings is that they are meant to make us stop and take notice and thank God, not just pass by a rainbow or pass by a tree or have a drink or, whatever it is. And, I often use the example of a blessing I personally don't say on a regular basis, but there's one for going to the bathroom, after you go to the bathroom. And, I'll tell this to a bar mitzvah student or a bat mitzvah student, and they'll kind of giggle and laugh. And I say, it's often not until you've had trouble doing something that's supposed to be a very natural thing that you appreciate when things work out okay and things do come naturally, and then you do feel that sense of gratitude. And, sometimes you're very fortunate or spoiled in that things come easily to you with your body functioning. And, as you start to get older, though, you realize that things don't always function the way you would like. And then you feel this amazing sense of gratitude for so many things that we take for granted. And, the way I understand blessings in many ways is to stop and, using mindfulness language, to stop, to know this, to be grateful, and to thank God for these things, which, it sometimes amazes me that so many liberal Jews, my peers who I come into contact with, are like, oh, I never thought of that. Or, I didn't realize Judaism has that built in. And I was like, that's such such an essential part of what Judaism is, the reason we say traditionally you're supposed to say 100 blessings a day is not to torture you, but really the opposite is to make you realize the beauty and wonder of the world around and not be focusing on the negative per se, but to really focus on the positive and all the gifts God gives us. So I thank you for talking about that and bringing that to our attention.
Thank you, Rabbi, for those comments. If I could add in one point.
Sure.
There was an idea brought down in the Talmud and Tractate Brachot in this, I believe it's the beginning of the 6th paragraph, if I remember, in the 6th chapter, if I remember correctly. And over there it has a phrase, a very interesting phrase, Asur lahenos min ha'olam hazeh b'lo bracha. That's forbidden for one to have pleasure from this world without making a blessing. Now what does that mean? And the Talmud goes on over there to explain that if a person does not make a blessing before they eat, they don't think about what they're doing, they don't think about it's coming from God, it's like you're stealing from God. Step one is, sit back, think for a second. God, you're the one who put the fruits in this world. Every day by lunch I try to eat a fruit because it's very healthy. And I was thinking today as I ate a pomegranate, which obviously as Tu B'Shvat comes along also. There is a custom, again, I don't know if you're familiar with the idea to eat from the seven fruits of Israel. Shivas Haminim, the 7 fruits that are brought down. And one of the things I had in mind today is when I made this blessing, I was thinking of the pomegranate and I thought about it. Many people also symbolize the pomegranate has 613 seeds, which symbolizes the 613 commandments, mitzvot. I was thinking about it. There's so much to it. There's so much little detail. There's so much I have to thank God for. How come we just run into it? It's like the blessing. I just got to make the blessing. And I'd say as quick as possible. No, let's sit back and think. There actually is a deeper meaning to it. And it's really something when you think about it, it changes your whole perception of the entire world. Your entire world becomes a new world. Rabbi, you're muted.
Sorry. Another teaching which I had never heard before, which was really interesting that you mentioned in the beginning about Moses and the water. Because obviously water plays such a crucial role throughout the Exodus story from the very beginning, as you noted, with Moses in his kevan, his little basket floating, and Miriam watching over him. And then, as you said, in the 10 plagues, and then you mentioned again Moses, when they crossed the sea, and in fact, Parshat Shalach this week, the one that is about the parting of the sea and the Israelites singing. And then even beyond where you we're talking about, obviously you know about it, but didn't have to do with the speech, was then, as they're wandering in the wilderness, and they run out of the water, and the Israelites fetch, and then according to the Midrash, the story that Miriam is followed by a well of water, and Moses speaks to a rock to get water, and then he strikes the rock to get water, and just so much of his story is about water, but I never ever heard the part about that's why he's not the one to turn the water to blood. And that's not why he does the plague of frogs. I found it fascinating. Is that in the Talmud, that teaching?
I'm not sure what the source is. I quoted it from the Peleiotes, which is a mid-1800s book. But I believe there are earlier sources to it. I just don't remember the earlier sources. However, I will add to what you're saying about ideas. There's obviously the question that Moses got punished when God told him to talk to the rock instead of hitting the rock. So why was God punished? Why was God punished? I'll say from the same book where I saw this, I will quote also that the reason God got punished was because Moses got punished. The reason God punished Moses is because of this reason, that because he got saved so much by the water, he can't now go hit something for water. He should have talked it. The same thing, it's a lack of gratitude, and that was what the punishment was all about. The same thing, there's a lack of gratitude. Once again, we see the importance of this gratitude.
I like that because I always have trouble. I think for most of us, it seems like a very harsh punishment that he's not going to enter the promised land because he struck a rock, with all that he's done. And obviously there are many reasons why, it's time to turn it over, and not everyone, in Pirkei Avot, like it's not your responsibility. It's your responsibility to start, but you don't have to do the entire task. And there are many explanations as to why Joshua would be an appropriate leader at that point. But I think Moses' punishment seems particularly harsh. So I like, that idea of connecting him with the water. It I think gives a little bit better explanation, makes it a little more palatable as to why Moses is punished when you recognize the good that the water has done for him.
Well, there are two other ideas in the punishment. That number one in the punishment is that, well, many times the people who are the super righteous, God judges them much more harshly because much more is expected of them. A person on top has higher expectations. A person on the bottom has lower expectations. And when you have higher expectations and you're a bigger person, the punishment will also be bigger. But at the same time, there's another idea, and that is, I think we mentioned this idea also earlier, the previous time we met together, was that there's an idea of this world and the world to come. And many times for the righteous, God will give them a harsher punishment in this world, that way when they get to the world to come, they can go straight up to heaven without having to go through the period of suffering over there and the period of punishment over there. So they'll already be pure when they pass away, and therefore right away they go straight to heaven without having to wait. While a regular person would have to wait, let's say 11 months or whatever it is, they can go straight. That could be another reason why.
That one I find harder personally, theologically, to accept. But it's interesting, I'll say. Any other questions or comments? Anyone on the phone? I just don't want to miss anyone.
Yes, thank you very much, Menachem. You brought out a very strong point. I was just wondering that you said that you have to give gratitude. Moses couldn't be the one to bring the plague onto the river because he was saved through water.
Yeah.
I don't understand. What type of gratitude could water have? Water is not a person. Water could accept gratitude. I understand you give gratitude to a person, thankfulness, something like that. How do you have gratitude to water?
So this is something we mentioned in the beginning briefly. Let's go on more a little bit to explain it a little bit deeper. And that is, obviously on a simple level, it doesn't have feelings. You know, they say when a person goes fishing, a fish does not have real nerves. And therefore, I should be allowed to go just catch fish and throw them back in right away, right? I should be able to go catch and release for the fun of it. But no, such a thing you don't do, because such a thing would not be right to it. It would not be. The idea is you're still going to cause it a harm. Water might not be able to feel something. It might not have feelings. It might not have anything. Although if you want to go according to Kabbalistic ideas, now obviously these are not stuff that we can understand. These are not stuff that I claim to know or understand. There is an idea that there are angels representing different things. But again, I don't know what this means. I'm not going to understand this. These are stuff that are a supernatural stuff that are beyond the regular, my basic small amounts of knowledge that I may or may not have. But the idea is a water, and even if the water itself doesn't feel, there's still the way a person is supposed to act. And the way a Jew acts and the way you show gratitude is not by harming this water again that went and saved you. And it's nothing to do with the water's feeling. It has to do with how is the proper way for me to behave. What do I do as a Jew? What do I do if I want to serve God? What is the proper way for me to live my life? And the proper way for me to live my life is, I keep into consideration the water. The water saved me. And therefore, the water saved me. I don't now go and harm the water. Whether or not the water is going to feel it, it doesn't matter. That is what it means to have proper gratitude.
Very nice. So you're saying basically is that this whole thing of gratitude is for me, how I'm supposed to act, how a person is supposed to act.
Yes. I believe that's a very big part of it.
Very nice. Yeah, 100%. Very nice. Thank you very much. You brought out an amazing point.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Ellen?
You explained that beautifully, but I just want to ask you, does this have any relevance? The fact that water is God's creation. We're just thankful to God for all of the creation, including water. Would that be a part of it?
I'm sure it's a very big part of it. I'm sure it's a huge part of it. But at the same time, there are certain things in God's creation that we could use for our purposes. The same way we could drink water, maybe since God also would say to bring plagues out of the water, maybe we should be allowed to do it because it's also coming from God. You know, there's a famous story. Actually, this I think it was last week, was the anniversary of his passing. The Rebbe Reb Zisha of Anatoly was one of the great Hasidic leaders. Him and his brother Elimelech of Lezhensk were probably the two most famous and well known in the Hasidic cultures of the leaders of the early leaders after the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidus. And in those days, as was common, they used to try to find excuses to throw the Jews into jail. So they got accused of something and they got thrown into jail. And as they're in jail, they're sitting in the prison cell. Every prison cell had in those days, a pail which was used for people to relieve themselves. Now, when a person is not supposed to pray when there is stuff that are impure next to them, because that's not respectful to God. So comes time for the afternoon prayers, and Rebbe Elimelech of Lezhensk starts crying. So what's he crying about? He said he's crying over the fact it's time to pray, and he's not able to pray now. So they said back to him, his brother Reb Zisha of Anatoly said back, the same God who said that you have to pray is the same God that said that when there's dirty stuff in the room, you don't pray. So with that, they started singing and dancing around this pail. And soon the entire prison's laughing and everyone's going crazy. The guards got very upset. The guards said, what does that mean? People are enjoying themselves in prison. So the guards went, they took the pail out of prison, and they went back and they were able to pray. This story illustrates the idea and the point of a person that many times there are things that God tells us to do, and then God will tell us something else to do. We have to know is what does God want from me now? So by Moses, he could have said that what God wants from me now is for me to go turn the water into blood, because that's what he wanted to punish the Egyptians. But no. God told him, you have to learn what it means to have gratitude. And gratitude means that no, you're not going to go now and you're not going to go turn the water into blood, because That's not the way you act. That's not what proper gratitude means. Instead, what are you going to do? You're going to let your brother Aaron do it. So yeah, there is an idea that it comes from God, and we have to appreciate of that. But sometimes God will say, right now, there's something else that matters. And therefore, right now, what we have to do is, we have to know what our purpose is right now. And right now, what's our purpose? Right now, your purpose is, would have been to turn the water into blood. But here, because of gratitude, no, Aaron's going to have to turn it into blood, and that's not for you to do, because you have to show your gratitude. Did that explain it?
Definitely.
So, can I ask you about the etrog? I found that also interesting. I did not know that. I know that we are supposed to, with the lulav and the etrog, find the nicest palm, the nicest willow, the nicest myrtle, and the etrog, the finest etrog that smells the best, and all of those things. So it makes sense to find the best etrog. And in fact, I remember last year when I went to buy a lulav and etrog, there were like, this is the cost for a lulav, the etrog costs X or X, depending on if you want a good, it's kosher no matter what, they're both kosher, but if you want the really good one, it costs more. So my question is, though, why the etrog on Tu B'Shvat? And you did touch on it, but I'm just kind of curious.
So if you look at the Mishnah, the earliest source we have to Tu B'Shvat, the earliest source we find says that it's, I'm going to quote the words to you and I'll translate it, Rosh Hashanah L'Ilonot,
right,
which means that it's the new year of the trees.
I have to interrupt you 1 second. So Benji's middle name, and his name is Binyamin Ilan, because his birthday is January 27th, and he was born near Tu B'Shvat. So we thought Ilan was perfect because it's the birthday of the Ilanot, the trees.
Yeah.
But he hates it now because Ilan apparently, while a popular Hebrew name, is not a popular from name. So he hates his middle name in Hebrew because it doesn't fit. Binyamin can be Binyamin, but Ilan is just modern. It's too modernish for him.
Yeah, well, it's not a common name in these circles, but Rosh Hashanah L'Ilonot, yeah? So, an Elon is a tree. The way we represent, we find trees represented is by the stuff that comes from the trees. What comes from the trees? The fruit that grow on the trees. So that's why when we use the term etrog, now I don't think it's just an etrog, I think it means all the different stuff. I think it means your myrtle branch and your date palm. I think it means it all that you're supposed to praise to have a nice one. But the way we view it and the way we're going to refer to it is by the fruit, because the fruit is what symbolizes the tree. A beautiful tree is a tree that has fruit on it, not one that just grows big and strong. A cedar tree is a great tree. It's a big, strong, powerful tree. By the end of the day, the cedar tree lasts for each generation, but after that, it's gone. A person, they say, people are compared to a fruit tree. That a person's goal in life is to be like the good fruit tree. They go, they fertilize, they have kids, they have fruit. Future generations, future comes out of it. Every fruit has seeds inside of it. The seeds then go and they make more trees. That is the power of the fruit tree, and that's the deeper meaning of fruit. So especially on Tu B'Shvat, it's a Rosh Hashanah for trees, but also to us should symbolize something. That it's symbolizing a rebirth, a future, a regeneration, especially as we're now in this COVID era, when this pandemic going around, a lot of people are very unsure. What's going to happen? What's going to be the future? What's going to be? Think about the fruit tree this year on Tu B'Shvat. That's what you should be thinking about. That, yeah, there is a future. Don't worry. Yeah, right now we may be here busy with the fruit trees. We might be busy in this world. There might be a crazy world, all the fights, this, that. But don't worry. A better time is going to come and things will happen. The world's going to keep going on. That's why we have a fruit tree, and that's why it symbolizes in fruit.
Do you think there's any midrashic connection, and this might be pushing it, but I know, in America, most Jews assume that the fruit on the tree in the Garden of Eden, we all say it was an apple, which really comes from Christianity, and in Jewish tradition, the midrash says that it's an etrog. So I was wondering if there's any connection between that, because you're talking about the future, but I wonder, and I could be pushing this, but if there's any connection between that really in the past, in the Garden of Eden, by stressing the etrog on Tu B'Shvat as well.
So it could be for that. I can't tell you for sure if there's an answer. I could tell you though the Talmud and Tractate Brachot also, it lists several different ideas for what it is, for what type of fruit it is. Now everyone says the apple, the etrog, but also brings up maybe it was wheat, or maybe it was grapes. Why grapes? Because we don't find that people could We don't find that people do bad things until they're intoxicated. Wine intoxicates people. That causes bad things. Or it could be that it's something else. Or it could be wheat. But the Talmud ends off with something very interesting. And it said, and all the different commentaries on the Talmud over there explain it, that the Talmud does not give an answer to what it is. It gives a lot of ideas. But then it says we don't really need to know. The question is, why do we not need to know? You would think this should be something significant in our history. You know, from the Garden of Eden, the thing he ate, that tree, from the tree of knowledge, you know, the thing that destroyed the world, destroyed society, caused the changes that we're now stuck with. Every bad thing that happens in the world is because of that. Yet, we don't know what it is. We don't know what caused it. If anything, you know, I want to go near it again. I want to touch it again. I wouldn't want to eat that fruit. But that's the lesson. That, it could be that fruit was the one used. But no, there's nothing wrong with the fruit. There was nothing wrong, and therefore we can't forget it. We should not focus on the past. The idea is the future. Where am I going from now? Where am I going in the future? It's not about the past, it's about the future. How will I keep going?
Anyone else?
Thank you so much, Rabbi. You really brought out the depth of what the gratitude is supposed to be, especially when in common to the depth of just thinking about how Moses is able to stop himself from bringing the makot to the water. And now we'll have a whole new positive picture in what the upcoming ceremony of Tu B'Shvat is going to be. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you for listening, and I hope it didn't. I hope you were able to gain a lot from it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was so nice to be able to see you this time. It was an extra treat. So hopefully I will get the recording in a day or it usually takes like a day and be able to share it with lots of other people who couldn't make it and you. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, Rabbi. It was amazing.
Thank you once again for giving me this privilege of coming over here once again to come join. And hopefully we could use this as an opportunity to continue growing together and hopefully come closer to God through it. And we should all enjoy our Tu B'Shvat and hopefully focus on growing over Tu B'Shvat. And remember the fruit and remember the future. And it'll be a whole new Tu B'Shvat experience this year.
Amen. I have nothing to add except amen. This was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much once again.
And, everyone enjoy the rest of your week, and I will see our TMK seers on Shabbat in a couple of days or evening. I guess in about 48 hours.
Oh, thank you, Menachem. Thank you so much. Thank you for arranging all of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving me this privilege of being here. Again. And Rabbi, if you want, I could send you the text. I don't know if you have the text of the Modani.
What's that? I'm sorry.
The text of the the text of the Modani prayer. I don't know if you have the text.
I know it.
Oh, you know it. I wasn't sure. I could send it out in case anyone's interested in seeing it.
Oh, yeah. No, it's in our door. We just, when we do our service, just for time's sake, we haven't included. I kind of also, the cantor and I inherited the service the way it's been done, and we haven't.
You haven't changed it.
Changed it, but no, it's a beautiful prayer. It's
a very special prayer. Yeah.
Very important.
You know, an interesting fact about the prayer that I once heard is that I heard from my biology teacher back when I was in Israel with Benji, and that he said when you think about a person when they wake up in the morning, they should they're supposed to sit up for about 2 seconds and then get out of bed because of the blood rush. So the custom in the Orthodox world is that when you sit up, you say Modani. It's the first thing you do when you sit up. It takes about 2-3 seconds, whatever it is to say. It's a dozen words, and then perfect. By the time you're standing, the blood flow is perfect. Just an interesting thing I saw about it.
No, it is. It's nice to begin the day on, I think, a note of gratitude, and again, the same as any gratitude throughout the day. But to start your day with that mind, something as simple as saying a brief prayer and starting the day on a positive note.
Yeah.
I think can make tremendous, instead of like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do, or what am I going to do, whatever the case may be, depending on
definitely
what your day ahead is like.
It definitely makes a big difference.
Making your bed.
Exactly. It definitely makes a difference the entire day. And then also from that point onward, since the entire day is going to start on an idea of what could I do to grow today? How can my day be different? What am I going to gain today? And adds a whole deeper meaning and a whole new meaning to your entire day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Toda Rabba.
There was a time in my life when I was not grateful for the day, but every day I am grateful.
Thank you for sharing. Yes. It's a special day. Every day is a special thing.
Yes. Yes.
I'm going to close it out unless anyone has anything else they want to add. But otherwise, I hope we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great night and enjoy. And enjoy your tea,
I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.